Well, first of all, I think that we need to look at maybe the root cause before we talk about the so-called broken windows syndrome. And I've been asked a question in some candidate interviews, would you want to go back and regulate contracts or undo contracts that have already been done? I think that that's a bad path to go down, as bad as I feel for people who have entered into those contracts. So I think we have to look to the future. And of course, Congress, as well as our own state legislature, has begun to address this issue somewhat. I have talked before in some of our debates about a so-called plain language bill in which we would reduce down the contractual language in many of these mortgages that people have entered into. There's two sides to this coin. Everybody should watch out for themselves and be cognizant of what they're signing. On the other hand, I would bet even our attorneys in here have signed contracts that we didn't read every single word, and if we did, we might not understand it. So I would like to boil that language down and possibly get counselors in for people who requested it at least when they go to a closing. As far as what we do now with this syndrome, I've heard horror stories of people who have gone in, and when I did this painting business several years ago that I mentioned, I was in some of these houses, and it is just shameful and terrible what happens when people have to leave. The most heartbreaking thing for me is probably the pets that are left behind to die a slow death of starvation and lack of water. But people, sometimes I've heard two extremes. They leave notes saying, I'm sorry I couldn't pay, please take care of my house, to people destroying whatever they could. There is an interesting program that's being started up now by, I believe it's Crown Realty or Castle Realty, by Penelope over in North City Park. And her realty company are looking into ways to get people to stay in the neighborhood after their houses have been foreclosed through a public-private partnership by keeping people on as renters until they reestablish their credit and get a new start in life. They stay in the same school, they get to go to their same church, they keep the same neighbors, and so on. And so this is really a pilot program now through the private sector, but I think that's exactly the kind of program that I would look for, is to work with realtors and to work with others within the mortgage industry to hopefully get a public-private program together to prevent this.